A disappointing season keeps getting worse as the Heat offense completely collapses in a loss to the Hawks, dropping Miami to 4 games below 500. Has the season reached the point of no return, and should Miami embrace the tank? We'll answer that and more in today's episode of Locked On Heat.
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome to Locked On Heat, your daily podcast on the Miami Heat, whether you're tuning in on YouTube or your favorite podcast app. Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. I'm Wes Goldberg here with David Ramil. Both of us are credentialed Heat media members who cover this team every day. Before we jump in, a reminder that Friday night, another Locked On Heat watch party this Friday, February 28th at the Taurus in Coconut Grove for the Heat's game against the Indiana Pacers. Tip-off is at 8 p.m., but come earlier. Watch the game with us. Take advantage of an extended happy hour, signature cocktails, great food. Hopefully watch a Heat win. Best of all, the chance to hang out with David and I at a bar to watch a Heat game. No matter what happens, how bad could it be? We're looking forward to seeing you guys all there. All right, we are recording this on Monday night after the Heat lose to the Hawks in Atlanta, 98-86. This was a nightmare of a game on offense, David. This is against a Hawks defense that hasn't been very good this season. They came into tonight's game giving up 140 points in 2 of their last 3 games. This is just the second time all season that they gave up less than 100 points. It's the first time that they held an opponent to less than 90 points. And of course it happens to the Miami Heat. Not a ton to take away from this game, except this one thing for me at least. Not only are the Heat losing these games, but they're also at risk at becoming really boring to watch while doing it, which is probably the worst place for an organization to be in the NBA, David.
It's not pretty. I can look at the game and you know the process was there. I feel like they were generating okay looks, maybe nothing great. It certainly wasn't free-flowing offense, and it didn't seem like the ball was moving particularly sharply or anything like that, but they were getting some looks. But it was just inexplicable how Miami could not seem to hit a shot, not only just from the perimeter, where they were absolutely abysmal. Tyler Herro going 0 for 9 on the night and just unable to hit a shot. But Alec Burks missing from the corner. You know, Andrew Wiggins was okay from the perimeter. But other than that, there was shots in the paint, shots at the rim, things that normally would have fallen for this team, and just couldn't seem to get them to drop. But it's happened frequently enough with this team and their offensive collapse where I feel comfortable in saying it's not just a bad shooting night. It certainly was that, but it was, I think, just more symptomatic of everything that we've seen from this team, especially over the last few weeks, where offense is just more and more difficult and they just can't seem to get any easy looks. And for anybody using the excuse that it's the second night of a back-to-back, Atlanta played on Sunday as well. That's not an excuse. Miami just could not buy a bucket. They look bad. They look boring, to your point. And I don't even know what to make of this team. Like, you and I both talked following the trade about how potentially exciting this could be, adding 2 key perimeter defenders and Davion Mitchell and Andrew Wiggins, that they might be able to generate some more offense. Maybe we were unnecessarily overexcited, and clearly we were wrong, at least thus far. But I didn't think it was going to be this bad. I didn't think it was going to completely fall apart. They just have stopped giving effort. They don't have the talent to excel at a high level. They don't play with any kind of energy or enthusiasm. I saw something today, and maybe I just haven't noticed it as much, but a lot of wringing of hands and complaining about foul calls, things that you don't typically see from this Heat team. And I don't like it. I look at this team, and I'm sorry. I try to be as positive as anybody about this group, but there's not a whole hell of a lot to like. And when you watch this group play and giving up early and not showing maximum effort when they're relinquishing an early lead and then just falling behind double digits and just unable to close the gap. And then you close the gap midway through the fourth quarter. You're down by 5. You're like, okay, plenty of time left. And then it's a turnover by Andrew Wiggins, a missed shot, a blown defensive coverage. and on and on. It just piles on, and you just don't play with the same kind of purpose and intent that this team should be playing with, especially at this point in the season. And given the fact that they just came off the All-Star break, you can't use exhaustion. You can't use still trying to find your place together. Those are all excuses. And while they might be factors, they certainly don't contribute as completely to a collapse like we saw tonight.
And I thought coming out of the All-Star break, right away, they at least looked okay. They win that game in Toronto, and then they looked pretty good for the first half against Milwaukee, right? They open up that double-digit lead, and then like the last part of the third quarter, that fourth quarter, and then tonight against Atlanta, everything flipped. And I went from feeling really good about this team in the first half against that game in Milwaukee, and being like, wow, the All-Star break really did do this team good. We went into the All-Star break saying there wasn't a team in the NBA that needed the break more than the Miami Heat. And like we kind of looked vindicated by that statement for a little bit there. And then they go whatever it was, 1 for 9 from 3-point range against the Bucks in that fourth quarter. They open up this game just with something over the basket. They couldn't buy a 3-pointer for anything. And you know, they have their worst 3-point shooting game of the season in this game, but it's not just a 3-point shooting. They miss more than half their shots at the rim. They go 9 of 21 from the mid-range. They were 4 of 15 on corner threes. Like they couldn't make a bucket anywhere in this game. And sometimes, look, I'm willing to, in the course of an 82-game season, just be like, off shooting night for everybody involved, crumble this thing up, throw it in the trash can. But there's just more going on here where it's the late game collapses. It's the minutes upon minutes of not being able to generate a good look offensively that has me worried about this team. Some key points from this game. All right, before we get too much further into this thing. Terry Rozier was benched to DNP-CD for the first time for him this season. Alec Burks got his minutes in this game. The Heat shot 7 of 40 from 3-point range. It was their worst 3-point shooting game of the season. Dyson Daniels defended Tyler Herro for most of this game. Herro just 11 points in this one. Dyson Daniels himself 7 steals in this game. And maybe the only positive was that the Jimmy Butler package played pretty well. Andrew Wiggins had 23 points. Kyle Anderson had 14, got to the line 10 times. The Heat hung around in this game mostly because of defense and free throws, but they're not going to win games when the offense plays like this.
No, it's hard to take anything too positive away from this. Like Wiggins was fine. Kyle Anderson was okay. He was getting to the line and hitting most of those shots. But the free throw shooting, there was a huge disparity. Like Hawks fans, I mean, they put Miami in a bonus midway through the fourth quarter, or earlier in the fourth quarter, and they hit plenty of their free throws. They got plenty of attempts. But even that felt more like, they can't buy a bucket. I don't know how many of them were well earned or anything like that. It wasn't like they were necessarily drawing a whole heck of a lot of contact. Atlanta was trying to play physically when it comes to their defense intensity and things of that sort. And Daniels,
and it was weird. Sorry to cut you off, but like Kyle Anderson does get to the free throw line. Andrew Wiggins does get to the free throw line. Not like this. Right. And so if the Hawks looked at the free throw disparity and be like, okay, that's one thing. But it wasn't like they were giving up free throws to Miami's star players. This wasn't Bam and Tyler Herro getting to the line. This was Wiggins and Kyle Anderson. You're kind of willing to live with, all right, we kind of sent role players to the line 20 times.
Sure.
We're probably not going to lose that way.
They certainly didn't.
They did not.
But it was really ugly. The 3-point shooting has to be a talking point here. Like Alec Burks getting so many minutes over Terry Rozier. And again, it's easy to play armchair quarterback and be like, oh, we know what the, Spo should have done something differently. Like you and I were even half jokingly before we started recording saying, maybe Rozier might have been able to help. Who knows? Like maybe he would have been the spark plug tonight. It's possible.
I'm a little surprised we didn't see him. I know that Heat fans have been begging for Spo to finally bench Terry Rozier, and he does it. But
not like tonight. Maybe he could have generated some offense because nobody else was contributing. Like Burks had been so odd. I texted you this during the game. He had been so automatic from 3, especially in the corners earlier in the season, and you knew that he was going to have some kind of a drop off. But this was alarming. Like he had wide open looks, and then after a while, it's just like you're trying to find a way to desperately shoot your way out of this funk, and he's just putting up these ill-advised shots where he's being guarded closely, and it's like with very little time left, or just not great looks towards the end there, and he just wasn't able to hit anything. So I don't know. It was a really
I think
strange.
the Rozier spot in the rotation might just be cursed. It's not Rozier, it's not Alec Burks, it's just that specific spot in the
Whoever the
lineup
eighth
is
man
a
off the
cursed
bench,
spot.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a cursed spot. Is there anything the Heat can do to fix our offense? We're going to talk about that next year on Locked On Heat.
Today's episode is brought to you by DoorDash. NBA fans, get ready. They swoosh, you save thanks to Dash Pass. Every time a player drops 50 or more points in a game, you score a huge deal. The next day, it's simple. When any player scores 50 or more in a game during the 24-25 NBA regular season, Dash Pass members get 50% off an order up to $10 the next day from noon until midnight. Listen, let's say it's you're watching a game and it's an epic 50-point performance. You want to celebrate by ordering wings, pizza, or burgers from your favorite spot, and they deliver it straight to your door. Maybe you're just craving something late at night. You're staying up to watch highlights or just need a midnight snack. Well, you can use Dash Pass to grab something delicious while saving big. Or maybe you just want some lunch on the go. You need a quick and easy lunch the next day. Well, with Dash Pass, you get your favorite meals with $0 delivery fees and reduced service fees. Plus, now you save even more with this exclusive NBA offer. So sign up to Dash Pass and be ready to save. When any player scores 50 or more in a game, Dash Pass members get 50% off an order the next day, up to $10 off. Just use the promo code NBA50. That's NBA50 from noon to midnight after a 50-point game on eligible orders at participating merchants. Must have an active Dash Pass account. Terms do apply, but visit DoorDash to learn more. We'll be right back.
Thanks again for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Your favorite NBA team has a free daily newsletter. Introducing the Locked On Heat newsletter, one stop for ultimate Heat and league coverage with local analysis and amazing writing from Katie Heindel, Mike Shear, and Locked On fantasy basketball tips from Josh Lloyd. Sign up for free now at lockedondaily.com. Erik Spoelstra after the game said, quote, "We are closer than what it feels. The intentions are great. There are things trending in a better direction."
Ooh.
I understand Erik Spoelstra's want to try to find the positive in this thing. I mean, that is essentially his job, is what are the things that we could build on, and let's build on those things. I got to tell you, that first quarter, if we're judging it only on the first quarter, I see where Spo is coming from. I thought they got really good looks. They just missed them.
Yeah.
And it's hard to be upset about that. And you look at where Miami is, how Miami shot in that game, they're not going to shoot 17% from three-point range, probably again this season.
Well,
like that is an.
I'll put that out there. That's a little too real. That's too realistic for this team.
Yeah, clip this one, and you can use it against me. But that is such a low percentage. I mean, even Miami's other second worst three-point shooting night of the season after this one was 24% or something. I mean, 17% is abysmal. You just don't see it at that level anymore in the NBA. But you know what? That's maybe about all I have that's positive from this game, because it's not just this one shooting performance, to your point that you made earlier, David. Since January 1st, the Heat rank 25th in offensive rating. What's the craziest part about that stat is that they were 10th in offensive rating before January 1st. That's a crazy drop-off to go from top 10 in offensive rating to bottom 5 in the league. I mean, is there anything that this team can do to fix their offense?
I don't think so. I really don't. I know that's probably not what Heat fans and our listeners want to hear, but being to the point you just made, and to Erik Spoelstra's comments after the game, a lot of it seemed like it was generating decent looks. Not great, not really wide open or well spaced out, but decent enough looks where you got to be able to hit those. But there's something off about this group right now, and I can't seem to figure out what that is. And I don't know if it's, like I said, I feel like the emotions have run so high for so much of the season, and I know that doesn't seem like a very valid excuse or something that a lot of fans want to listen to, but it feels like there's something off between the ears here, and they just don't seem to be able to separate the negativity and focus on doing their jobs as well as possible. And you look at the offense. Okay, first of all, I think it's it has looked like a clunky fit a lot lately. There's just the basis of any NBA offense nowadays is the pick and roll. Miami runs pick and roll as poorly as any team in the league. They just don't have either a ball handler or anybody who creates space. They don't have anybody who's quick enough to take advantage of that. With the exception of Khalil occasionally ducking to the rim, they don't really have anybody either as a ball handler or as a rim roller that's a legitimate threat in pick and roll situations. And without that as the basis of your offense, you're basically just attacking. And because you lack the kind of explosiveness from either position, you're just not able to generate a good enough look. And you wind up dribbling into the teeth of the defense or just finding a defender between you and the basket and having to put up a floater or something along those lines just so you can create a little bit of spacing. Or you wind up kicking it out to the perimeter. And on a night like tonight, where you just can't seem to knock down a shot, that's basically a missed possession.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what to make of it. I just, you look at what they do in pick and roll, and they're just horrific at it. And I don't have the numbers to bear it out. Maybe I should have looked that up beforehand. But you just
not good.
watching the game, I'm sure it's not good. I just don't know how bad it is. I don't know how bad it is, so I could say, wow, they have been trending.
Look, I don't need the numbers.
Worst.
I don't need the numbers. I think what you just said is extremely astute. I don't know that there's another team in the league that runs pick and roll as poorly as this Miami Heat team does. You're absolutely right. And for a minute there, it looked like they were figuring it out because Khalil Ware was, being found and dunking every single lob that they threw at him. But they open up this game trying to get Ware involved with 2 lob attempts. The Hawks are ready for it. They knock away both passes. They just deflect both passes, say, oh, we know you want to do this. You're not going to do it.
Right.
And again, this Hawks defense is not one that is typically dialed in or even has the talent to make those kinds of plays, especially with Jalen Johnson sidelined for the rest of the season. So this is, it is remarkable to me watching the Heat try to force the ball into somebody like Bam, who's not a pick and roll lob threat, or to Ware, who is a pick and roll lob threat, but they don't have the passer to do that. And then see Trae Young on the other side flinging passes and finding Clint Capella for these entry passes. You look at the box score, Clint Capella outplayed Bam Adebayo. Clint Capella got benched for Onyeka Okongwu. He is not a better player than Bam. And frankly, I don't think he did play better than Bam in this game. But
he was more productive.
But he was more productive because he's got a point guard in Trae Young who's just spoon feeding him these lobs and in this pick and roll and all this stuff. And the Heat just don't have that advantage creator. So that is a huge point when it comes to discussing why this offense has played so poorly. And the other part is that they do miss Jimmy Butler, right? You look at the on-off ratings. Jimmy Butler was Miami's most productive offensive player this year before he quit on the team. And I found myself watching this game being like, man, I feel like this Heat team would have been pretty good with an engaged and motivated Jimmy Butler. And that's not an argument to go say that they needed to pay him or whatever. I'm not getting into the politics of it. It's just an observation. With a physical advantage creator on offense like Jimmy Butler or any other player like that, that player is sorely missed. And there's a lot of reasons why the Heat don't have that player anymore. But they don't have that player anymore. There's another part of this too. During this stretch where they've sunk to the bottom of the league in offense, they're also 25th in three-point field goal percentage.
Yes. I'm glad you're bringing it up.
They are going to shoot better. They are not that bad as a three-point shooter. You look at the personnel, they are better than this. And even with Davion Mitchell being added to the starting group, Terry Rozier has been in a season-long slump, and so that doesn't matter whether or not they were 10th in offensive rating or 25th on offensive rating. Rozier's been in a slump in both categories. But they're going to get better from three-point range. I don't know if they're going to get to where they were, but they'll be better than near the bottom of the league. In terms of answering that question, what can Miami do in the meantime while they're sort of waiting for this reversion to the mean?
Mm-hmm.
This team does not score efficiently enough to slow the game down anymore. And Eric Reed, I heard him on the broadcast. He said this team wants to drag games into the mud and beat you that way, and they want to grind it out. You can't grind it out anymore this way. You can't do it. Not only are you bottom in the league in offense and in three-point shooting percentage, you're also bottom in the league in shot attempts per game. You can't slow the game down anymore. You don't have the personnel to be an efficient offense on a per possession basis. You don't
Right.
have those players. You don't have a Nikola Jokic or a Luka Doncic or a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander who are just these walking efficiency machines. You don't have those guys. So what do they need to do? They need to increase the volume of their shots. They need to push the pace. And that's the part that I can't figure out is Jimmy Butler was the guy who was efficient offensively and could afford to slow the game down, and that was his comfort zone. But Jimmy Butler ain't here anymore. And it feels like guys like Bam and Tyler Herro and everybody else would play really well pushing the pace, and they're not pushing the pace. And I don't know what the deal with that is, but this team needs to push the pace. That would be the number one thing if I'm Erik Spoelstra that I'm trying to figure out between now and Wednesday night's rematch against Atlanta is how do we get more shot attempts? How do we push the pace? How do we become one of these teams that are top? I want to be top 10 in pace, top 5 in pace, because we don't have the personnel to be efficient on a per possession basis. So we need to increase the amount of possessions in order to have a chance in this game. You increase the variance in that way, and that's Miami's only opportunity.
I don't know. They just don't seem comfortable with that aspect of the game. I don't know if it's just a matter of ball handling, and I know they had a number of costly turnovers and just silly ones too, like bad passing, bobbling the ball, just the inability to make a simple pocket pass. Little things like this that they just should be able to do at a high level, and they just don't feel quite comfortable there. And I don't know if it's that either. I don't know if it's just let's slow things down because they're working so hard in the defensive end, only to give up possessions anyway because they're just not good enough. And they wind up kind of having to take a moment to slow things down a little bit rather than just playing at this breakneck speed because they don't have the horses for that either. To your 3-point shooting question, like what's going on with Duncan Robinson? And he's not getting a lot of attempts. It seemed like he wasn't shooting. I mean, I know he was 1 for 5. I felt like I couldn't even remember him taking 5 3-point attempts. They must have been at some point where they just weren't really effective. Like this is not what should be the basis of his game. Like we've talked about it before. He should be putting up 7 to 10 3-point shots, and that's the majority of his game. And a lot of those should be good looks. He can't seem to get any kind of spacing whatsoever. It seems like even now, what was working so well, that 2-man game between him and Bam Adebayo, has completely evaporated and is no longer even a functional part of this offense. And I don't know what's going on, but it just seems like his role has been minimized, or the defenses have figured out a way of just taking him away, or perhaps he's just a step slower and hurt. I don't know.
No, I bet we could look at every single field goal attempt that he took, and we could find probably an open one from this game and maybe last night against Moa. I can't anecdotally remember the last time he had a good look from 3-point range. Like even in this game, he was sidestepping his way into threes and stuff like that.
Yep.
It's every single shot for him is contested, and I don't understand why they don't have Bam facilitate the offense more. And it's the thing I keep going back to and I want more of every single game. Bam is not a lob threat. He's not a roller. He doesn't have that in his game. I understand that you want to get him involved from the free throw line and get him into those sweet spots and try to find the pocket pass with that. I just think he should be initiating more offense. Give it up. Yeah. He's not going to score 24 points per game. And I think you could probably do better having him facilitate up high, run those dribble handoffs, let him throw the ball over the top of the offense or over the top of the defense, and find a cutting Duncan Robinson, a cutting Tyler Herro. These guys curling off of a Khalil Ware screen on the other side of the court. Whatever it is, let him do more of that. I would rather Bam average 6 assists per game than try to score 24 points per game at this point, because that's not going to happen anymore for him. That's just not his game. So I don't know. I think to me, if I'm Spo, if I'm in charge of this team, I'm trying to push the pace. And I want Bam just running offense, whether it's in the full court, grabbing it off of a defensive rebound, whipping it down the court with those hit-ahead passes, whatever it might be, finding more of those dribble handoffs, setting those screens at the as an initiator off those dribble handoffs. I'm trying to push the pace. I'm trying to create those better looks, and I'm trying to make Bam more facilitator than score.
The last time Duncan had a decent 3-point shoot, not decent, a good 3-point shooting game. He was 6 of 12 from 3-point range. January 21st against the Portland Trailblazers.
A month ago. The Heat did tinker with the rotation tonight, but a key player still remains on the sideline. We'll talk about who it is and why after this.
Today's episode is brought to you by Arrietty Hospitality. Hey, Miami Heat fans, are you looking to elevate your game day experience? Well, check out 2 must-visit spots just steps away from the Kaseya Center in downtown Miami. First up, we've got the Brasserie Laurel. a culinary gem in the Miami World Center recommended by the Michelin Guide, Laurel offers an upscale French brasserie experience, blending old world charm with modern flair. Whether you're enjoying delicious bites or sipping craft cocktails, it's the perfect spot before or after the game. And don't miss their happy hour specials every day from 5 to 7 p.m. Next, head over to El Vecino, a sophisticated cigar bar with a laid-back vibe. It's the ideal pre or post-game hangout, or even a place to watch the game. Enjoy exceptional cocktails, bites, and a welcoming atmosphere for all, including non-smokers. They've got a happy hour daily from 4 to 7 p.m. And of course, they are the hosts for our watch party this week at the Taurus as well. Both of these incredible venues are part of the Arrietty Hospitality Group, known for elevating Miami's dining scene. So don't miss out on these game-changing spots. We'll be right back.
Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Best way to support the show, like and subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on your favorite podcast app. Thanks to the Locked On Heat Insider community for sending in your listener questions after the game. You can find a link to the Locked On Heat Insider community in the show notes below. Free for 14 days, $4.99 a month after that. First question comes from Cameron, who writes in, what does Haywood have to do to get some minutes? Obviously, Spo can only tinker with so much, and Burks had a bad night. But if no one could buy a bucket, why not try to throw Haywood in the game to at least prevent easy buckets down the stretch? Malachi writes in, I don't understand why Haywood Highsmith continues to be in the doghouse. I know you guys probably don't know either, but I thought we could have used him tonight. David, we've talked about the Haywood Highsmith thing a couple of times here. Curious that we didn't see him at all in a game where, yes, no Nikola Jovic. Spo went with Kyle Anderson right away, and for the bulk of those what would have been the Jovic minutes, but we saw him experiment with Jaime in the first half a little bit. Not the best results, but he at least threw Jaime a few minutes. Let's see what you can do. That didn't work out. I thought we were going to see Haywood for a couple of those minutes in the second half, just to experiment, but we didn't. Again, I don't know that Haywood changes the outlook of this game. I don't know if this is a Heat W instead of a Heat L if Haywood Highsmith plays.
No.
But it feels like he's like maybe another 2 injuries away from getting minutes here.
I don't understand it. But this is bizarre even for Erik Spoelstra. And I know that there's something that they've seen has eaten away at whatever confidence they had in Haywood. But his season has like there were early in the season, there was a stretch there where he wasn't playing either. And then because of a Jimmy Butler injury, if I'm not mistaken, we wound up seeing Haywood gets more playing time, and he was fantastic. And we talked about them revamping the starting lineup and having him as a starter there. He was playing the 4 spot when Nico wasn't really contributing at a high level after he was a starter and he got benched. And then Haywood just added this dimension defensively. He was knocking down the 3-point shot at a high rate. He was just a real positive factor out there. And I know Erik would probably say something to the effect of, well, we're still trying to figure out the right combination of players where everybody gets maximized, et cetera. But I've never seen anybody just drop off as completely as this. Like, there doesn't seem to be any reason for a player that's healthy and has at least an elite skill in terms of his perimeter defense and not be able to carve out some playing time there. Like, you're giving minutes to Alec Burks, who is basically just an offensive player, and he's not scoring. You've been giving minutes to Terry Rozier, who doesn't provide either offense or defense. And you've got Jaime, who was basically a non-factor. You've been giving minutes to Pelle Larsson, a rookie who's not better than Haywood as far as what he brings defensively, and is just, as much as we love his energy and intensity, he's not really much of a factor as a scorer. I'm as flummoxed as our fan base. I really have no idea what it is. And I know somebody's already asked if anybody has asked Erik why Haywood isn't playing. He's not going to give you a straight answer. It's like, no, we're just still trying to figure it out.
Right. He has been asked, and he hasn't given a straight answer, to your point, David. And that's why you probably haven't just seen an answer about it, because you're not getting a straight one out of it.
Right.
The numbers, I will say this. The numbers don't back up that Haywood Highsmith is a positive contributor. According to Cleaning the Glass, he is the 4th worst plus-minus impact on the team. The Heat are being outscored by 3.4 points per 100 possessions, different when Haywood Highsmith is off the court than when he's on the court. That's fourth worst behind Terry Rozier, Josh Richardson, and Jaime. Offensively, the offense goes in the toilet when Highsmith is on the court. Defensively, they're better, but only marginally.
Right.
And it doesn't make up for the difference offensively. And I will say this, defenses don't defend Haywood Highsmith. And Haywood Highsmith is essentially a non-factor dribbling the ball. Like, they not only do they not defend Highsmith when he's like open in the corner, they don't really defend him when he's dribbling. Like, the first two dribbles, they don't really care. And they'll just say, okay, you're probably going to try to make it all the way to the basket. We'll just send our help defender in the last moment and probably get a deflection at that point. Contest your shot at that point. So I think we all like Haywood Highsmith, and I like Haywood Highsmith. The numbers say that he's one of the worst players on the team. And it's not like he's been starved for minutes earlier in the season. So maybe it's as simple as Erik Spoelstra looking at that and just being like, I like Haywood. It just doesn't, for whatever reason, it's not clicking with this group and Haywood Highsmith on the floor for us this season. And so he's made, like, Pelle Larsson has a better plus minus than him. You know, and I don't know. Maybe it's just that simple. I don't really know. But let's move on to a couple more questions before we get out of here. Tiffany writes in, we obviously are not winning anything this year, so why don't the Heat lean into the young guys like Kashad Johnson, Isaiah Stevens, Pelle Larsson, the guys that are probably going to be on the team next year? This way they can start playing together more. We're not there yet, is my answer. I mean, there's still a lot of value in getting Wiggins, Davion Mitchell acclimated with this group, letting Tyler Herro play out his all-star season. Like, I'm not at the there's enough depth here where I'm not at the point of, yeah, let's start playing the two-way guys. What about you?
Yeah, I think we're getting close to that point.
Maybe, yeah.
But, you know, the two-way guys aren't the answer either. Like, I love a good story more than the next guy, to be 100% honest. Like, I love the idea of a guy working their way up. And, you know, that's been a staple for this Miami Heat group for a long time, even before this current iteration of this group. As much as you like a Gabe Vincent story or a Max Strus story or a Duncan Robinson, like, I mean, this has been part of Pat Riley's MO ever since he was with the New York Knicks. Like, I mean, just bringing guys up and having them work their way into heavy rotation minutes. And so I love seeing those success stories, but they're not going to be the difference. Like, there's a reason why they're two-way guys. Kashad, we love his attitude. We love Josh Christopher's attitude. Isaiah Stevens seems to be a legit point guard, but they're in the G League for a reason right now, and they're not going to make that much of a difference. And so I don't know that I mean, Andrew Wiggins is a better player than Kashad Johnson. You know,
well, I think
Kyle
to
Anderson's
Tiffany's point too, it's if we know that the season's not going anywhere, just play those guys anyway, understanding that they're not as good as these guys. Like, we know that they're not the difference makers, and that's almost the point. My
team's not
thing,
going to do that though.
They're not, and they shouldn't, because I don't think that helps them in their development. They're two-way guys because they need the development in the G League. Like, they need the G League development. That's where they're on in this process. You can't fast forward this stuff. You can't just start throwing them out against. You can't throw Kashad Johnson out there against Giannis and expect him to develop. He's just going to get flattened by a semi-truck. Like, that's all that's going to happen there. Like, there's a process to this development, and that's why. And they're getting that. They weren't even on the bench for Miami and Atlanta because they're away from the team on G League assignment. They're in the process of this now, even if we can't really see it. And you can see it. You can watch the G League games on YouTube. Antonio, last one here. Antonio writes in, no explanation except we're secretly tanking. Actually, I don't think it's a secret anymore. It is so obvious. Funny thing to write in. I don't think they are tanking just yet, which, depending on how you look at it, could be disappointing, depressing that they are playing this poorly while also actively trying to win games.
Yeah, I can't see any evidence of a tank. Like, I know that Erik Spoelstra is being criticized by fans, and I don't know how much he's responsible. His rotations have been wonky, and you could make some questionable. You could point to some questionable decisions on his part. Certainly, I mean, he's made mistakes this season that seem a lot more glaring, with the lights being a little brighter and the drama of the Jimmy Butler situation and everything else like that. But I don't think they're actively trying to lose games. There's a bad vibe around this team right now, and they're not playing well. The on-court product is bad. but I don't think that they're doing this purposely. And players, again, players don't tank. They're not, if they're losing games, it's just because they stink. It's just because they're not good enough. And unfortunately, that's what the case is. Like, I don't think Erik Spoelstra could possibly be doing anything to sabotage the woeful shooting that we saw from this group, where they go out there and shoot 17%. Like, I mean,
Right.
he's not putting Alec Burks out there knowing that he's going to miss 7 3-pointers. Like, he's not putting Duncan out there knowing that he's going to go 1 for 5 from 3-point range. Or Tyler, after a 40-point outing, he did not think that Tyler was going to go 0 for 9 from 3-point range. And so I don't think that there's any kind of tank. I will say I hope that they lean into it. For the first time in a long time, I'm actually saying, you know what, tank, see what happens, because it's not working out. But I know that has an impact on the draft pick and everything else like that. So maybe that's not the right strategy. This team, unfortunately, is probably going to be too good to bottom out completely and get a top pick, and not good enough to avoid a play-in yet again.
Right in the middle. Mediocrity, right? Not good enough to win at a high level, not bad enough to bottom out completely, and it's frankly too late in the season to do that anyway. And if it's more games like this, not very watchable. That said, we will be watching Wednesday night's game at home against the Atlanta Hawks, and hopefully, I've got so many credit cookies just sitting in the oven. They're baked. Some of them are just stale.
I don't even know what the kitchen looks like anymore, to be honest with you.
I don't know. We got to hand these things out. But for now, thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Like, comment, and subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on your favorite podcast app.